Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Shinath ji jaya, Bhagavad jaya, Shinath ji jaya, Giri Govardhan.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Shri Chaitanya Vishtam Sahajanam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Uttamapanakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sadhujatam Saganaraghunattam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parinadasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganarita Shri Vishakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Takta Kantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavadeshwari Vrishabhanusuti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vacha Prabhupada Kripa Sindhu Devascha Panitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo 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 Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatra Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaurabhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Continuing our discussion of the 13th chapter, which is titled The Nature of the Enjoyer and Consciousness. So Krishna spoke that this understanding of the body, the kshetra, the knowers of the body, the knowledge, the object of knowledge, all of this can be known only by the process of pure devotional service. And sometimes we try to reconcile and put all the pieces together and try to understand how this all works, when we get to some of these technical points. But actually, the means to understand this science of devotional service is by chanting. By very good chanting, all of this becomes revealed, actually. And Prabhupada always used it is a science. And the reason it's a science, because it's very systematically established. There's nothing random. We see so many things around us and we perceive randomness. That something's happening out of just, coincidence. But actually everything is happening under supreme jurisdiction. Just like when a child walks into a giant assembly factory, we see these things moving here and there, cranes are moving, this is moving here, it appears random, doesn't it? Like to the untrained eye, everything's just happening, but actually everything in that factory is happening according to some great design. Supreme Mind has put that this should move here at this time, that this should move here at this time, and everything is very systematically put together. There's no randomness. And that's how a vehicle comes off at the end of the assembly line. It's not random. So actually the material world also has this very systematic process by which it operates. And because sometimes this world is very bewildering, right? How many times we are left struggling with the answer, why this? Why? That three-letter word sometimes can create the bane of our existence. Like, why? And it can be very difficult. So, Krishna said in the 19th verse, you can understand the why. Why? Devotional service. And there's actually no other means. We think, I can keep studying all the Shastra, I can keep, analyzing the world around me and figure. Good chanting. Really good chanting. This knowledge becomes revealed. And Prabhupada says in the purport that knowledge must be vigyan, which means realized knowledge. That the knowledge of Shitra and Shitra, I know I'm not this body. I'm the knower of this body. I can define the term Kshetrangya or Gaya or Purusha. I may define them. But that's not Vigyan. Vigyan is realizing and living with that knowledge. That yes, I am independent of this body. There is a higher knower than me. And those aspects become actually realized knowledge. So we are acquiring Gyan, particularly this section of Bhagavad Gita. Lots of Gyan, very interesting Gyan, how things are put together. But it becomes realized by the practice of devotional service. And so Krishna, very interestingly, in the 19th verse says, in the middle of this somewhat technical chapter, reminds us, right? Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain my nature. So he's just completed chapter 12, which is devotional service itself. And just reminds us again, before we get too far, bhakti, chanting. This is the way to understand this. Right? So, in the next verse, Krishna says, material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations in the modes of nature are products of material nature. So, the point here is, again, to this point of system. It's not randomly. The modes of nature are not working just in random. The living entities are not moving from body to body or circumstance to circumstance by just some random act. But it is actually very methodical. And so we want to understand that methodology, right? We need to know, why is this happening? Am I being forced into these circumstances beyond my control? Or do I have some part in the opportunity? Because to the extent they're being forced upon me, that leads to frustration, discontentment. Right? So answering this question about how everything is working around us creates a very settling existence for us. So that then we can learn how to actually improve the situation. Right? We're in this very unsettled circumstance of COVID. We're all searching, this Pfizer and Moderna come out with out these great vaccines and everything's going to be perfect. But will it be perfect? Once everyone's vaccinated? Everyone will be happy again?
Oh, they'll await the next set of problems.
There'll be a next set of problems. So the real solution is trying to understand how to actually solve these permanently. Right? So now Krishna is going to say in the next verse, this 21st verse, who is the cause and effect of all the things around us? So is it random or is it designed in a particular system? So let's read 21 and discuss today.
Nature is said to be the cause of all material cause and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various suffering and enjoyments in this world.
Purport. The different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body and not to himself as he is. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing. The spiritual world is pure. But in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are the instruments for gratifying desire. Now the sum total, body and instrument senses, are offered by material nature, and as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put in the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put in the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat, stool, and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the super soul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.1, as follows: Dvaya Suparna Sajuya Sakaha. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul and in all circumstances is present as the super soul or Paramatma.
So we have understood the Kshetra and Kshetragya, the body and the knower of the body. But the question becomes, how does the knower of the body acquire its body? Right? So how do the Kshetra and Kshetragya come together? So that here Krishna is answering, and will answer in the next couple of verses. So Krishna says that nature is said to be the cause of all material cause and effects. So is nature responsible for our experiences in this world? No. It says nature is a cause. So how do we understand what is the cause of our various sufferings and enjoyment? Who is the cause, first of all?
We ourselves.
We ourselves.
Past desires.
We ourselves. How often in our life we have felt the extraordinary pain of the feeling of injustice. Always. But according to this, is there any injustice? Who is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyment? The living entity. Meaning we are responsible. So that is the fact of nature. Right? So, just like in that factory, right? Who is the cause of the cars coming off the assembly line? In one hand, we can say all the machines, the robots going here and there. But would we say they're the real cause? It's who's the cause of those cars coming off the assembly line ultimately?
The person who programs it.
Yeah, the person who is operating the machine, who's designing, who's programming everything. And there's a person behind it. Right? So the person may not be the immediate maker of the vehicles, but they are ultimately responsible for the machines going on. This is some crude example of the role of nature in our experience. So, yes, nature is the cause of effects. It delivers to us all of our experiences. But the living entity is responsible. Right? So Prabhupada opens up this statement by saying the different manifestations of body and senses among the entities are due to material nature. So what does that mean? I just thought it said it was due to me, a living entity. So what? The different manifestations. How many different manifestations of bodies are there?
8.4 million.
8.4 million different species, different types of kshetras.
Yeah.
Let's not say life. There's only one life, Jiva. That's what these we're speaking of, right? There's 8.4 million vehicles, bodies, kshetras, fields, right? Only one kshetragya, meaning that's occupying the body, that's us as Jiva. Right? So 8.4 million species, right? And who is creating these species?
Material nature.
Material
Nature.
nature. Right? So what we know, the kshetra is made up of these 24 elements. We spoke a few verses prior, right? Those 24 elements are from nature. So nature has fashioned these 8.4 million species of life, of bodies, these kshetras, right? Now, how does the jiva come to occupy one of those different species? First of all, let's step back. If nature is the creator of these bodies, the kshetras, who is the creator of the jiva, the kshetragya?
Krishna.
Because the jiva is it part and parcel of material nature?
No. Spiritual part and parcel of.
It's part and parcel of Krishna, it's spiritual energy. So it has no creation from anything material. The jiva is now immersed within matter, but it doesn't come from matter, it comes from spirit. Right? So, now the intersection. How it happens that the jiva acquires different bodies. So what is the principal driver or determining factor for how a jiva acquires different types of bodies? Why we got the human body? Based on our
Desire and sensual pleasure.
desires and
Actions,
past actions. Right? Desires and past actions. Prabhupada said, he says in the middle here, he says the blessed and damned situation, right? Where is that sentence? I lost it.
That's middle of the page. Probably 40%.
living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desires and activities.
Yeah. So who's responsible for our blessed or damned existence? We are. But when we face difficulties, what do we always search for?
Somebody to blame.
Thank you. Somebody to blame. We look for the recipient of our blame. Who I can blame for this. But how do we find who to blame for it? Step in front of a mirror. You'll find it. It's, a little bit stark and maybe you can say harsh. But it's the reality. It's the reality. Right? So, the experiences we have in this world, it's based on our past actions and desires. Now, I said that's harsh. But it actually makes it very, very also liberating. Because if I know I'm the source of my blessed and damned experiences, what does someone with any intelligence try to do?
Be careful about our future, at least from now onwards.
We try to understand what? If I know I am the source of my difficult things in my life, what does someone with some intelligence try to do?
Try to cut out
Improve
those
ourselves.
negative aspects.
Understand what happened. What did I do to lead to this circumstance? Right? So it's a very logical conclusion. What is the activities or consciousness that led me to this situation? And then I try to fix it. If I'm walking and I keep bumping my head into the wall, at some point I should try to figure out, okay, how do I not bump my head into the wall? That's what some intelligence would be. So, if I'm looking elsewhere for blame, who I can blame, I'll never find the cause of my suffering. So Krishna is saying, it is our own desires and activities. So then one will very logically come to the conclusion, okay, well, what desires and activities will lead to good things, right? Isn't that the logical next step? Okay, if it's my desires and activities, then which desires and which activities will lead to happiness? Because Prabhupada says in the middle of the purport here, sorry, my eyes are very bad today, I can't even read. He says, the nature of the soul is to enjoy, right? In his original state, there's no doubt of enjoyment. That means the Kshetrajna is meant to enjoy, to be fully happy. So when there is some suffering, it means something's gone wrong. Sometimes we think, oh no, suffering's part of life. That you have to have suffering to appreciate the good. I don't need 25-degree weather to appreciate 80-degree weather. Speaking in current terms, that's foolish. You can just appreciate 85-degree weather. This relative happiness is not real, right? So, our original state is to enjoy. So as soon as there are some disturbances, we think, okay, what went wrong? Where did I go awry? Right? Very logical. So what is the fundamental cause, the fundamental philosophy or logic that has led us astray and led us into this suffering?
Trying to enjoy separate from Krishna.
That's it. That is the fundamental consciousness that has led us astray. Trying to be the supreme Purusha. Krishna is describing in the next two verses. The Jiva as Purusha and the Super Soul as Purusha. As the supreme independent enjoyer versus the dependent enjoyer. So our desire to be master, to be the independent enjoyer, independent of Krishna, that has led us to this material world. It has led us to assume one of the 8.4 million species of life fashioned by the material nature. And now we get to experience it. And Prabhupada gives a very, very vivid examples. You know, what residential quarters, right? That's so easy for us to understand. The Jiva is living within this body, as we think I'm living within my home, my residential quarters, right? So the Jiva has occupied residence within this body. And each type of body that's created by what?
Material nature.
Material nature. Has a certain function or ability to enjoy. Again, enjoyment is the goal. And so if one has the hog body, what is one forced to enjoy? Stool. You cannot enjoy pizza, dosa, samosa, iPhones, driving in a nice car, flying in an airplane. If you're in a hog body, your residential quarters limit you to what you can enjoy. Prabhupada says if you're in a dog body, you can have some. If you're in the human body, you can have demigod body. So each body has a potential to try to enjoy and suffer. That is the cause of nature. And how do we get to different types of bodies? Again, is it random? Is it random that I'm in a hog body versus human body versus dog body versus tree body? Is it random? It's past action. Karma. Based on past actions and desires, one gets a certain type of body. So if I have a very nice, existence today, I should be very mindful. Making the bad decisions today is going to cash that chip in and getting another one. Another residential quarters. In which body I may live in. And once I get that body, Prabhupada says, what happens? What's that? When you get that body, what happens?
You are either blessed or damned.
You're blessed or damned. Yeah?
You start to enjoy it.
It comes under the control of nature.
He says at that time, the living entity has no power to change that.
Correct.
You're in, you're stuck. And now you have to experience that.
According to nature.
But who do we have to blame again for that? The Jiva. Live in, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. So while at first it seems harsh, it actually is very instrumental. Because it allows us to think, okay, if I have this difficult situation, I'm the source of it. How it happened? Let me analyze, figure out what actions are good for me, what actions are bad for me, and modify my behavior, my activities, such that I can achieve a better outcome. But if I'm convinced this is all random, or that it's someone else is doing, I'm eternally frustrated and suffering. No hope. Right? So this jnana that Krishna is giving us, it is giving us the key to finding out how to go. Just like this virus, right? We all want to know how to get it. If you know how to get it and how not to get it, then you can try to become free of it. So that knowledge has some relative value. But this is giving, Krishna is giving, how to solve all suffering. Not just today's issues, but eternal. And so, our fundamental desire was to be the enjoyer. So when we desire to be the enjoyer, we occupy a kshetra, a different field, right? But who else comes with us?
The Jiva. Who's Paramatma, the super soul.
And why is Paramatma coming with us? Why would he come into my body when I'm in a hog body? Huh?
He loves us.
Because he loves us. That is it. He loves us so much that even if you're going to go into a hog body and eat stool, if your best friend was going to go into a pit of stool, would you accompany them? Why not? It's not clean. It'd be inconvenient for us. No? Krishna's love is not like our love of others. Krishna says, I love each and every living, even though they have tried to enjoy separate from me. They're denying this position. They're trying to lord it over material nature. Still, out of my love and friendship, I am coming with them. That's amazing. And what is the goal of Paramatma in coming with us? What is Paramatma hoping will happen?
One day will turn towards him.
One
day will turn towards him.
One day will turn towards him. When we are ready to find a better way of our existence, to acquire a better eternal state of enjoyment, to rid ourselves of these material kshetras, material bodies. We don't have to look so far. We don't have to go to the edges of the universe. Simply within our heart is Paramatma, who will hear and witness that desire. And as a witness of that desire, will facilitate us coming in contact with someone like Srila Prabhupada, who can make these very difficult topics so easy. In this purport, he makes the very difficult topics: how we get a body, what is the nature's role, what is our role, how does that body limit our ability to enjoy? With just such eloquence, he is presenting this. And our fortune to come in contact is simply the mercy of Guru and Krishna. So hearing some desire in our heart, we've been fortunate. And so we're very lucky that in all circumstances, Paramatma is accompanying us. And so our hope is that we will look to Paramatma for guidance, understanding which decisions are good for me, which are bad for me, how I can come out from this kshetra that I am in and acquire my eternal state, which is in the spiritual world, rendering devotional service to Krishna, where one is in a constant state of enjoyment. There is no ups and downs, constant state of enjoyment. But one must realize, I have acquired this kshetra. I am now in this residential quarters due to my desire to try to be the independent enjoyer. Material nature is fashioning so many varieties of bodies, and what I have is my own doing, but not independently. Okay? I can't hop in one body, this isn't so fun, and hop into another. No, you're stuck. So our control is very small. We have to recognize that. And ultimately, when we are searching for why, all we have to do is look in the mirror. Just look in the mirror. Now, how to fix it? Look to Srila Prabhupada's book. All the answers are here. And everything was perfect. So in the next two verses we'll discuss next week, Krishna is going to explain the difference in enjoyers. How we as a Jiva are the limited enjoyer, and how a super soul is the unlimited enjoyer. And if we rectify this fact, everything becomes sanguine, nice, situated. Whether our desire to be the independent enjoyer is what's led us into one of these 8.4 million species of life, into various sufferings and enjoyment within the material nature. So that's the gyan Krishna is giving here, and if we realize it, we can make a great future for us. If not, we'll continue on. But at least Paramatma will be with us. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions, comments, discussion?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Prabhu, here in the purport it says that and I'll try to read it out here. Yeah, it might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of senses.
Where is that?
This is.
Oh yeah, I see.
So what he's saying is the circumstances that the body experiences is because of our desires and past karmic reactions. But the body per se is because of the effect of the senses. That's the way I understood it.
Yeah, read the very next sentence.
Yeah. The senses are instruments for gratifying desires.
Yes. So the senses go into all kinds of places to experience and execute those desires of the mind. Right? So the senses ultimately, we can say, are creating the means by which we acquire our next body. You know, the senses are actually very hard to control. Right? And they're material. The senses are material, they're matter. Right? My eyeball is a bunch of chemicals. That's all it is. Right? But that eye sees so many things. The tongue is a bunch of chemicals. But it wants to taste or speak so many things. And the result of those seeing things, hearing things, tasting things is karma, reactions. And thus that creates my next set of mind. So the senses, they're the instruments to execute all the desires of the mind. So in that sense, the senses are helping to create this next body. But it still starts just like that machine is creating and building a car.
Okay.
Right? There's still an impetus behind that machine that's moving that machine. The senses are being moved by the desires of the mind. Does that make?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. No, because the next between the two lines, and that is what I was just trying to understand. Why was this segregated? That one is talking about the body, and then you're talking about the circumstances, which is the next line. Where now Srila Prabhupada categorically mentions that this is because of your desires and activities.
Mm-hmm.
So the second part, the circumstances, he's talking specifically about that. And why, what was the reason that he segregated the two? Why not just say that the body and its circumstances is because of my desires and activities?
He is, but he's connecting now how those desires lead to action. They come through the vehicle of the senses. Right? Because he says 2 lines down, the sum total is the body and the instrument senses. The instrument are the executing vehicle by which the desire. So it's just connecting the subtle aspect of desire to action.
True.
Right? So there's, from desire, there's the gross body that experiences those. And ultimately those are the senses. So it's just creating the full connection.
True.
And that's what and that's where, again, we see, the senses, they roam crazily, freely. They're very difficult to control. And we saw this right in the 2nd chapter, very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. But actually the senses are just matter. They are moved by some force. And that's ultimately the Jiva, the living entity within. So Prabhupada is just connecting the pieces. When I say the engineer built the car, well, there's still some pieces between the engineer and the car. There's the machinery and effect. Right? So the machinery in that example is some of this body and the senses. Okay? Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment. It was very nice class. You just said, right, we should always look in the mirror. It's very hard reality, actually. Hard to accept that, actually. Because we always have that tendency to play that victim card.
Mm-hmm.
That, we are the victim of this situation. Because we don't know what we did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We might have been good in the recent past, but our past, we don't know. it's hard to take up responsibility for those past actions which we are not actually able to see.
Yeah.
So, but if we go by what Prabhupada is saying, right? So, I think it's just to accept that fact, and if we can.
Yeah, it's harsh on the one hand, as you said, and it's extraordinarily powerful also on the other hand. Because the power is, I know how to fix it now. I'm empowered to fix it. So yeah, it may be harsh, but now I'm empowered. Right? Just like, we see how science produces all these things, right? And I may be taking something, and I'm enjoying it very much, not knowing it's killing me. It's bad for me, right? So now when I'm told it's bad for me, it's just painful, it's harsh. But it's also very empowering. Because now I can stop and stop killing myself. Right? Scientists will make these different products. I remember, back in the day, this margarine was so good for you, right? So good for you. And we think, oh, less cholesterol, less trans fat, and it turned out it's very bad for you. So, yeah, it may be harsh to know that something I'm enjoying is bad for me, but actually it's extremely empowering and beneficial. Because now I can fix it. So, yeah, at times the reality hurts, right? To take accountability for my experience, it's hard, but it's extraordinarily empowering. Because it puts the solution in our hands. The most frustrating thing in life is the feeling of the inability to do something about the situation that we want to change. That is so debilitating. When we are in a situation where we feel we cannot fix it, change it, just like a prisoner. Prisoner is stuck in the prison cell. It's very debilitating because they can't do anything about it to get out. It's a very difficult sentiment to have. But this actually is the unlocking the doors in that example. Because now we have the knowledge to know actually how to fix it. So no longer do we ever be frustrated by the seemingly apparent fact that I can't do anything about this. No, I can. I can actually do something about it. It's very actually confidence building. It should build great confidence. Wait a minute. Okay, yes, I have some suffering, but I can do something about it. I can fix it. What could be more encouraging? Okay? But if you don't know the fix part of it, then all you can do is hang on to the suffering. But if now Krishna is giving the solution. Right? To speak of the problem, anyone can speak of the problem. Krishna is giving the solution. And that's what makes it very nice.
Yes, thank you. So I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but in that circumstance, I wonder if we, like some Jiva, has the problem, but either can't fix it or doesn't want, they just don't have the motivation to fix it, or don't have.
They'll continue acquiring more kshetras. Right?
Just continue suffering.
Until I'm convinced I want to change my situation, I'm not going to do it. Because we have free will. That's why Krishna says that the living entity is the cause. Nobody else. Nature is just facilitating. Nature facilitates the bodies based on our desires. So if I don't have a desire to change my circumstance, Krishna says, okay, no problem.
Even when they feel like it's not in their control, the changes, I can't control. Some changes you can't control. It's still their fault.
What do you mean? Explain that maybe.
Say there's a situation and the Jiva, wants to do something about it, but it's not under their control. Then do they just continue
Well, the jiva has to understand the scope of control it has. The jiva may want to stop, all disease in the world. There is the scope to do that. And it's not through scientific research. It's through spreading the holy names. So one must know how, right? So the jiva must understand its role and capability in fixing something. And ultimately, when it comes to devotional life, in devotional circles, we can bring this now to more of a spiritual platform, where, we want certain things to happen. Even in devotional life, we want certain things to manifest. And when they don't, what happens? We get frustrated. Because we're forgetting whose plan is reigning supreme? Krishna's. And whose plan is right? Always or sometimes? Always. So when our plan coincides with Krishna's plan, it works out okay in our mind. But when our plan doesn't coincide with Krishna's plan, something went wrong. But actually, what was wrong? Our plan. Because Krishna's plan is right. And why Srila Prabhupada had so much strength through all the setbacks? Because they weren't setbacks in his mind. This is Krishna's plan. But if it was, my plan is failing, then we have the potential to give up or to become unmotivated. Prabhupada, no. Okay, this didn't work because my plan didn't coincide with Krishna's plan. Krishna's plan is right. Okay, let's keep working towards Krishna's plan. Whatever he wants will happen. And that mood of surrendered action makes one very steady in devotional service. And if you study Prabhupada's life, his steadiness through extraordinary circumstances is very, very inspiring for all of us. Because we go through ups and downs with the slightest of setbacks. But Prabhupada was enthusiastically endeavoring throughout all circumstances. So he understood his role in that whole plan. A little bit off topic, but I don't know if I addressed the point you were making or not, but
I was just thinking family has distress through fire, like the fires in California, or like a tornado, or hurricane, lose everything. It wasn't necessarily under their control, but to overcome the suffering.
no, and look, we can't, you don't apply this when somebody is suffering from, a tragedy. We don't think that's their karma, past actions, past desires, good for them. No, that's not the mood of devotee. The mood of devotee is how to just show compassion and love to that individual, seeing the suffering, and how to help. But a devotee knows how to apply a permanent solution. Why Prabhupada came and suffered, so-called suffered so much? Because he felt pain in his heart, seeing others suffering and not knowing what is the cause of their suffering. He wanted to open up the eyes. This is why. So the devotee wasn't thinking, oh, they're suffering, that's their past karma, material nature, another body for this person. No, the devotee, para dukkha dukhi. The only pain the devotee feels is seeing the suffering of others. So, as an individual, when we see others in suffering, we should not take this callous approach. Material nature is executing based on past action. Yes, that's factually correct. But it should inspire a desire to try to help that person. and show them the means to overcome and present it in a palatable way. At that time of tragedy, you cannot go and say, well, this is because of your past action that your house was burnt by fire. No, that's not compassion. That's not intelligence. Intelligence is showing some immediate help, concern, and slowly helping to shine light on what Prabhupada and Krishna are giving us. Right? So let us not become callous knowing what is the cause of our suffering and enjoyment. Yes, internally, we take full accountability. But with others, we try to show compassion. And that's Srila Prabhupada's life in a nutshell. Compassion for all the suffering of others. If you see what he did and how much suffering himself he endured, that is the magnanimity of Srila Prabhupada. The likes of which we've never seen in this world. Anything else?
So what you're saying basically is that all this thing of what we talk about karma and all that stuff, that when we talk about ourselves, we should view it, then we should accept in that form. When we're talking for others, it's obviously compassion, not that perspective should not be in our mind at that point of time.
Well, so when we're talking to others, we know why they got it. We know exactly why. But we're not going to articulate it in a way that becomes disturbing to them. Right? So we articulate it in a way that's actually supportive and helpful. So we know in our heart why it happened. We don't blame Krishna, why you did this to this poor innocent chap and nothing to this. No. That means Krishna made a mistake. No. But we may not articulate it in that. We may speak things that will be palatable for that person at that moment. So in their time of need, the ultimate solutions. So the devotee knows what can be spoken at which times, in which circumstance. But the devotee doesn't have a think, oh, for me, yes, it's karma, for them, it's like, no, they know exactly why. They know why. Right? Make sense? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.